Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll explore what Until Dawn is. Imagine being trapped in a place where every night repeats like a curse, where the dawn doesn't bring hope, but more death, more confusion, and more monsters. In Glor Valley, the creatures are not just physical threats. They are distorted reflections of the human mind, horrors born from pain, guilt, and secrets that should have never come to light. Each monstrous figure lurking in the darkness represents something deeper. The past we can't leave behind, the trauma that consumes us from within, and the cycles that repeat until they break us. That's why in this video, we're going to dive into the darkest part of this story. Not its victims, but its executioners. We will dissect, understand, and reveal the true origin, meaning, and power of the creatures that inhabit the endless hell of Glor Valley. The story begins when 5 friends arrive at a town forgotten by time and wrapped in ancient legends. They never imagined they would become trapped in an endless cycle, hunted by bloodthirsty entities. What seemed like just another night of exploration turns into a repetitive nightmare, a constant fight to survive, only to die again and again. Melanie is dragged underground by a creature resembling a wendigo. She struggles, kicks hard, and manages to free herself, running through roots and shadows until she collapses, breathless. She thinks she's safe, but a floating figure appears before her. She begs through tears, terrified, only for a sharp blade to pierce her chest. And so she dies again. A year later, another group returns following the clues Mel left before she disappeared. Max wants to close the cycle with a symbolic ceremony, although Megan, the group's medium, refuses to participate in rituals. NeNah, sarcastic, suggests celebrating the failure, and Abe, her partner, a psychology student, reminds them they're there for answers. Clover has no doubts. Her sister is not dead, just lost. During a stop, they find a video Melanie recorded before vanishing. The place in the clip is right in front of them. One of the girls enters a gas station and shows Mel's photo. The attendant mentions several disappearances near a place called Glor Valley. The girl returns excited with the information, but a storm blocks the way back. The car suddenly stops in front of a completely dry clearing in the middle of the rain. Intrigued, they get out. Abe suggests waiting inside the dry area, but Megan feels something is very wrong with the atmosphere. They discover a tombstone, then an old visitor center they decide to explore. Inside, they find hourglasses with skulls, dry toilets, and a board full of missing persons. Outside, Clover thinks she sees her sister through the fog and runs after her. Max manages to stop her just before night falls. But when they check the board again, they find something chilling. Melanie's name is listed as missing too. Clover confirms it. They are in Glor Valley. NeNah is alarmed when she sees someone has turned the hourglass, and Megan hears something moving outside. The car has been moved. Someone is watching them. They decide to lock themselves inside the building. Abe and NeNah stay upstairs. The rest go down to the basement. Max notices the underground level is unusually deep. Clover finds an old phone. Megan discovers a transmitter, but no one answers. Upstairs, Abe hears a noise and goes to investigate. He doesn't return. NeNah follows him and finds him torn apart, split in two. Her scream alerts Max. From the hallway, Max sees a hunched figure over her. She runs to warn the others, but it's already too late. Max tries to confront the creature. She hits it, stabs it with a stake, but the killer coldly stabs her through the eye. Clover grabs a knife. Megan, who had hidden, is discovered and brutally thrown to the ground. Clover stabs the monster, but it doesn't stop it. It flees into the woods. She falls, gets up, and sees a figure that looks like Melanie. She runs towards her, hopeful. But it's a trap. The killer stabs her through and through. The hourglass empties and turns again. Everything begins again. NeNah writes her name in the guest book. Megan cleans the mirror. Abe flips through a brochure. Max drags Clover back. They are confused. How are they still alive? But something has changed. Their faces are now on the missing persons board. Abe suggests fleeing, but NeNah replies with resignation. No matter what they do, the cycle has already started again. And so has the killer. The lights flicker. The door opens by itself. Megan begins convulsing. Her eyes turn white. A blood-curdling scream extinguishes all the lights. Total darkness. Clover turns on her flashlight. Megan is gone. They find her levitating. Her eyes are now completely black. She starts repeating lost words, phrases from those who disappeared. She is possessed by their souls. And then she issues a warning. Don't let that thing in. A dry sound breaks the silence. Her neck snaps. The body falls. Lifeless. The cycle ends. Or does it just begin again? When Megan's lifeless body falls to the ground, a loud crash shatters the silence. In the darkness of the lobby, desperate knocking sounds on the door. It's Mel, screaming and begging to be let in. Abe tries to stop Clover, but the cries of pain from his missing sister break any hesitation. Max, hesitant, removes the barrier. Clover runs to the entrance, driven by hope. But outside, there is no one. Only a structure that wasn't there before. A solitary, sinister house in front of them. Clover approaches cautiously, but an invisible force throws her inside. Max runs after her, but the door slams shut, throwing him to the ground. Inside, Clover's screams fade as she is dragged into the darkness. Finally, the door closes with a harsh, brutal sound. Max tries to reach her, but NeNah panics when she sees him running into the unknown. Abe, with a strange calmness, insists they must seek help outside that cursed place. Meanwhile, inside the house, Clover wakes up in a disturbing scene. Surrounded by mannequins with expressionless masks, she finds an old woman connected to an oxygen mask, watching a news report about the Glor Valley disaster. Clover approaches carefully, but the old woman stops her. You will only survive if you hold out until dawn, or the place will consume you, she warns before knocking her down and forcing her to breathe through the mask. With each inhalation, darkness slowly takes over her. Her eyes turn completely black. A twisted smile forms on her face. The door opens. Max bursts in and manages to reach her. They flee in the Jeep, crossing the line that separates the storm. But something gigantic blocks their path. They have no choice but to turn back. The evil is closing in. When they get out of the vehicle, Abe is brutally attacked and killed by the monster. NeNah gets trapped on the other side of a sealed door. Determined, Max goes upstairs. He finds a clown doll rocking on its own. When he turns around, a masked figure confronts him. He thinks it's Clover, until it violently attacks him. Blood stains his wrists. Clover is no longer herself. Under the influence of the blood witch, she leaves the house with a vacant stare. The killer hits her with the Jeep. Her body lies lifeless on the asphalt. And at that very moment, her eyes return to normal. The hourglass flips. Everything begins again. Now the group decides to barricade themselves in the bathroom. Abe, turning on the faucet, is surprised to see the water flowing, even though it had been cut off before. Exhausted, everyone drinks while sharing what they know about the witch and the cursed town. They decide to stay there until dawn, but something starts to go wrong. Megan watches in horror as her nails deform and her hair falls out in clumps. The transformation has begun. She warns the group. If they don't escape soon, they will become part of the place. Abe starts coughing violently, and without warning, his body bursts into pieces. Shocked, Megan discovers pieces of Abe in her mouth. She runs to the faucet to wash herself, but it's already too late. Paralyzed, NeNah realizes they all drank the cursed water. One by one, their bodies begin to explode. Caught in panic, they run to the lobby. Megan convulses. Her leg explodes, then her abdomen, until finally her head bursts in a spray of blood. In desperation, Clover takes Max's hands and places them on her neck, begging him to end it all. Unable to refuse, Max applies pressure, and her body also explodes, covering him with blood. Clover, shattered, falls to the floor. The gas station attendant appears, but he no longer looks like a simple man. He is an enigmatic figure. He warns that staying still means death, and without giving her time to react, she also explodes. The clock turns. Again, on their fourth night, without rest and without hope, the group explores the basement searching for any clues. Clover finds documents and IDs, and there she discovers it. The attendant is not who he claims to be. He is Dr. Hill, a psychologist who, somehow, is tied to the origin of all this horror. Amid the tension, Abe hands Megan a weathered newspaper. Its pages recount a catastrophe that happened 2 decades ago in Glor Valley, a mining collapse that claimed the lives of over 1,000 people. The article mentions that a psychologist was sent to assist the survivors, but shortly afterward, the entire town disappeared, swallowed by the earth. That revelation shakes Max, who finally understands that the basement where they are trapped is not what it seems. They are actually inside the ruins of a building that was buried. Searching for a way out, NeNah opens a door hoping to find freedom, but it leads to a network of tunnels belonging to the old mines. Shortly after, Clover's ex-boyfriend finds an old VHS tape. When played, it reveals the truth. The enigmatic Dr. Hill used the town's inhabitants as test subjects in experiments with time loops. In the recording, one of the experiments goes wrong, and a man transforms into a terrifying creature, a wendigo. The terror has just begun. At that moment, a voice blares through the speakers. It's Dr. Hill himself, who tells them the only way to break the cycle is through a voluntary sacrifice. Despite the group's skepticism, Clover decides to face him alone, ignoring their pleas. Max and Megan, worried about her fate, decide to follow. If she dies, they believe they might be able to restart the cycle once more. Along the way, Abe suggests abandoning Clover, but NeNah, tired of his selfish attitude, stabs him with a mining tool. The group continues onward. Meanwhile, Clover falls into a trap in the middle of the forest and disappears. At the same time, NeNah offers her partner as a sacrifice when she sees the killer approaching. Max and Megan run to a tree seeking refuge, but are surprised by a creature. Megan falls through a broken skylight, and although Max tries to catch her, they both fall. On impact, a wendigo grabs Megan. Powerless, Max flees, unable to help her. Wounded, Clover emerges from the ground. Max finds her, and they share a brief moment of truce, until they are attacked by Melanie, now transformed into a monster. Max manages to trap her head, and they escape. In their hideout, Clover breaks down, blaming herself for everything. Max comforts her, assuring her she's not alone. Facing the possible loss of Megan, Clover begs him to kill her to restart the cycle. With pain, he agrees. After cutting her throat, Max drinks the cursed water and charges directly at the wendigo. His body explodes, initiating another reset. Clover wakes up startled. Max tells her she fainted and that he carried her inside, but something doesn't add up. NeNah reveals they have already repeated the night 13 times. Checking the guest log, Clover confirms the unthinkable. This is their last chance. But Megan has disappeared, and the group's memories of previous cycles are confused. Fortunately, Abe had been recording everything. Reviewing his phone, they find a revealing video. Dr. Hill confirms that everyone must die to break the cycle. Megan was the only survivor last time, and she headed for the mines. Then alarms sound outside, and through the windows, they see figures approaching. The former inhabitants of Glor Valley. Clover grabs a tool and decides to end it all. NeNah insists she not do it alone, and the group joins her. Armed, they descend toward the buried town. Soon they are surrounded by monsters and take refuge in a house. But the killer bursts in from the roof. Desperate, Max begs Clover to look for Megan. Clover runs to the mines and confronts a terrifying figure. Her sister Melanie, now fully transformed. She tries to escape, but falls. She begs for her life, but there is no humanity left in her sister. With a final act of love, Clover drives a stake into her chest. Crying, she says goodbye forever. Meanwhile, Max, Abe, and NeNah manage to defeat the killer, but growls in the distance indicate the horror is not over. Clover finds Megan imprisoned inside a cell in an abandoned hospital. Next to her, a chained wendigo. She promises to come back for her. In the doctor's office, she discovers surveillance cameras, and then Dr. Hill appears and closes the door. There he reveals the truth. Each creature has been a manifestation of Clover's subconscious. The killer represents her helplessness, the witch her repressed side, the explosions her emotional destruction. As he speaks, he drinks calmly, unaware that Clover has replaced his coffee with the contaminated water. A second later, the doctor's body explodes into 1,000 pieces. Clover takes the keys, frees Megan, and locks up the wendigo. During the escape, the group is attacked again. They climb through a tunnel, and Clover manages to reach the surface. Megan is dragged, but Max and Abe manage to free her. They find a ladder leading out of the mines. One by one, the girls are rescued. The hourglass empties. The cycle has ended. As the first rays of sunlight bathe Glor Valley, the curse dissolves. Exhausted but alive, they celebrate their escape. The roar of an engine startles them. But it's only Abe, smiling from the Jeep. Ready for another night? He jokes. Everyone gets in and finally drives away from that cursed place. Weeks later, snow covers the trail. An SUV stops in front of the abandoned visitor center. Inside, Dr. Hill's monitors turn back on, and a familiar whistle echoes in the darkness. The game is about to begin again. And now that we have thoroughly covered the story of Until Dawn, I want to talk to you about the meaning of each of the monsters that appear in the movie. I will set aside those that are only mentioned or not particularly relevant to analyze them in more detail in a future video. The story of Glor Valley is not just a tale of survival and psychological horror, but also a journey through a universe of creatures that transcend physical fear to represent something deeper. Each monster hides a symbolic message, a manifestation of repressed traumas, unresolved pain, and the devastating consequences of a time experiment that repeats endlessly. Among them, the wendigo stands out as the very evolution of horror. Inspired by ancient legends, this creature embodies the corruption of the human soul, insatiable hunger, despair, and total loss of humanity. In Glor Valley, wendigos are not just monsters, but people who, trapped in a time loop, slowly fade away, becoming deformed shadows with sharp claws, gaping mouths, and empty eyes. Some, like Melanie, still retain remnants of their past, making them even more tragic. They are the terrible proof of what happens when someone lives the same terror over and over again until their soul is lost. In contrast, the masked killer manifests as a silent and brutal force, an unstoppable threat symbolizing absolute helplessness. More than just a physical enemy, it represents Clover's frustration, her feeling of being trapped, relentlessly pursued by something she cannot control or defeat, no matter how much she tries to fight or escape. This killer drives the group's deterioration, fostering betrayal and fear, marking the point where collective despair begins to take hold. The witch, although less visible, is an even more unsettling presence because she is an internal shadow, the repressed side of Clover. She is not a monster that appears to attack, but a symbolic figure embodying her guilt, resentment, and the contained rage threatening to consume her from within. In moments of crisis, this witch appears as the reflection of the horror born from the mind itself, the part of Clover that would have succumbed to fear and guilt if she hadn't fought to move forward. The explosions, which occur repeatedly in the time loops, are another form of manifestation, physical self-destruction. They are the result of desperate decisions, like drinking contaminated water or surrendering to the situation, and mark the painful repetition of the cycle. These explosions are like the final punishment for failing to break the vicious circle, the blast that forces the beginning anew. At the center of it all is Dr. Hill, the true monster without claws or fangs. He is not a creature, but the demiurge of this nightmare, the unethical scientist who uses suffering and trauma as raw material to create horrors. He manipulates time and watches as his victims face pain, love, and sacrifice, all from a mind more terrifying than any physical monster. He is the origin of everything, the invisible puppeteer who controls this macabre game. In the final moments, exploring the depths of the abandoned hospital and tunnels, even more deformed creatures are revealed, products of failed and out-of-control experiments. Some remain chained, others roam freely, representing the chaos unleashed by the experiment and the deepest fears of the collective unconscious, reminding us that the cycle has generated horrors beyond any human domain. What makes the world of Glor Valley unique and fascinating is that its monsters are not just enemies to kill or flee from, but mirrors of the human psyche, guilt, fear, repression, trauma, and despair that each person carries inside. Ultimately, the only way to break the cycle is not through violence or escape, but by facing the truth, accepting the pain, and reclaiming control of one's own story. Glor Valley cruelly and powerfully reminds us that sometimes the most terrible monster is not outside, but inside us. And that's everything we know so far about Until Dawn, the movie that takes suspense and horror to another level. This story strikes me as incredibly intense and full of unexpected twists, with an atmosphere that keeps us in constant tension, trapped in a time loop where every decision can mean the difference between life and death. Now I want to know what you think. Were you already familiar with the story of Until Dawn? Do you believe a movie can captivate you so much with its mystery and horror plot? And if you had the chance to face the horrors that appear in this story, would you have the courage to survive Until Dawn? Leave me your answers and your general opinion about Until Dawn down below in the comments. I love reading what you think about these movies that keep us on the edge of our seats. As always, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to share it to support the channel, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos.